Good evening. Mike Marshall, Vice Chair of the Auburn Finance Committee. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee, oh, hold on, I gotta record. I already blew it.
And on mute.
And on mute.
There you go.
Good evening. Mike Marshall, Vice Chair of the Auburn Town Finance Committee. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2002, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of this meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, they can call 1-786-535-3211 and use access code 991-599-357, or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/991-599-357. All supporting materials have been provided to the members of this body and are available on the town website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda participating remotely are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Trevor Sansucci?
Here.
Trevor's here. Patrick Jones?
Here.
George Graham?
Here.
Stephen Consilvio?
Here.
Andrew Shar.
Here.
Town officials and employees participating, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Interim Town Manager Dory Vecchio.
Here.
CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnois.
Here.
Administrative Assistant Danielle Chamberlain Roberts.
Here.
Also, please note that each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. I think that's all we got. So, the first item on our agenda tonight is some FY 2026 budgets, but we're going to skip to the transfer requests first. I believe the only transfer requests we have are from the Fire Rescue Department and DPW, So the first transfer we have is a transfer from the reserve account. It's going into the fire overtime account. The amount requested is $70,000. The present balance in said account is negative $18,115.75. Reason for shortage in said account is an underfunded line item, and Deputy Chief is here to give us a brief update.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, today I'm before you for a transfer from the reserve account of $70,000. As you said, we're currently negative $18,000 in overtime. I know the chief reported a week or two ago that we were at full staff. That changed quickly. We are down now 3, and currently we'll have 4. Soon we have one gentleman retiring, which is going to create some vacancies. However, on good news, we have interviews tomorrow to help try to expedite and fill those shifts as soon as possible. But with this transfer, that'll leave us $51,884.25 in the account, and we're hoping that will get us by for the next 5 weeks, so hopefully till sometime in April.
Any questions from the committee? My only question is, you said 4 vacancies, one of which is a retirement or injuries.
We have one that is an off-duty injury and one that's out on a leave currently. And then one that we had to let go due to a qualification issue.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please respond when I call your name. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Our next transfer is from the DPW Parks Department. Do I hear any motions on these 3 transfers?
I move that we take the 3 as one because of the account that they're coming into.
Does anyone have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio, Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. All right, so we have 3 transfers. I'm going to go through them quickly, and then Joanna Paquin is here to answer any questions that you have. The first is coming from the field maintenance account. The present balance in that account is $12,034.56. The amount requested is $500, and it's going into the uniforms account. The reason is for an account shortage, and it's the same reason for all 3, so I'll just say this once. To purchase a uniform for 3 new employees hired to fill vacancies. The second transfer is out of the Pappas Water account. The present balance in that account is $1,000. The amount requested is $1,000. It's also going to the uniforms line item of DPW Parks. And the last is the electricity account. The present balance in that account is $522.61. The amount requested is $500, also going to the uniforms account.
I have one question. We're hitting a utility for, it's a small balance, I understand, but we're hitting a utility. Is there a reason why that utility account is sort of obsolete?
Well, the Parks Department budget is a small budget, and we've already encumbered what we think we're going to use for the rest of the fiscal year, so those are the available funds.
Thank you.
What is Pappas Water? What does that mean?
I believe that would be the water that's used up at that park, at the Pappas Recreational
Sprinkler
Center up
system.
there, up at the park there.
Joanna Paquin is online. We couldn't hear you when you spoke a second ago, but if you could come off mute and...
Can you hear me now?
We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yes, so the Pappas Water is used to pay the bills for the concession stand. We have bathrooms there as well as the irrigation.
Any other questions? Any motions?
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
Vice Chair votes yes. All right. Our next transfer is for the Auburn Community Television account or department. It's coming from the contingency account, which has a present balance of $8,666. The amount requested is $950. It's going to the contracted services account, and it is to pay increased costs of reverse 911 emergency notification annual fee. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
I just want to understand the length of the contract. Is it a 3-year, 5-year contract? Is it a 1-year contract? I'm just trying to understand if we're going to, if this is going to take us to the end of the year, or
Yes, this is an annual contract.
it's an annual contract? Okay.
What is it normally, like, is this an increase of, this is a $950 increase on what?
Actually, we had a Code Red grant that we were using annually to pay a portion of this, and we do not have that grant for this fiscal year. So that's the increase, that's the part that was
That's the
paid
full
for by
price.
the grant.
And that falls under ACTV, not,
Well, it's split between town managers, specialized services, and ACTV. That's how it's budgeted.
Was this an unforeseen increase? Like, did we not know about, we didn't know about this increase for the year, or did they just increase?
No, we didn't know that we weren't going to receive the grant.
I got you, okay.
Yeah.
motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the Vice Chair votes yes. Next transfer is from the Pocketuck Golf Course. It's coming out of the building maintenance account. Present value in that account is $5,764.21. Amount requested is $200. It's going into the travel, meetings, and dues account. This is to, oh, I apologize.
Do we
This
have
has already been approved by the CFO, so this
Right,
is,
these next two are just copies of two transfers that I approved.
I'll just read this next one as well. Going to the same account from building maintenance, $250, so. Those have already been approved, and we're just here for informational purposes. That's all the transfers we have. We can get to the fiscal year 2026 budgets. I believe the interim town manager, Dory Vecchio, wanted to say a few words before we continue.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. The past month that I've been in the position, I've been meeting with all the department heads and looking at some issues in the department, staffing and whatnot. And as you know, we have a very tight budget. And a problem, or not a problem, but an issue and a concern has been raised in our finance department that required quite a bit of conversation. And I made the decision with the chief financial officer to add a position to the treasurer's office. The reason I did that is because they are dealing with an influx of different issues that have exceeded the issues in the past. Some of them relate to software issues, others relate to dealing with customers and ensuring that there's enough people in the office at each time, and separating the workload so that they actually can get their work done in the day when they come in. And it's been ongoing for a while. And I knew about it when I was the assistant town manager. This past week, we received notice from the state that they were going to increase our Chapter 90 funds to almost $1 million. And knowing that, and knowing that I had a surplus, and when we presented the budget last week of $29,000, I called Joanna Paquin in DPW and asked her if I could please take $17,000 from her roadway budget that I promised I'd give back next year to fund this position so that we can solve this problem. This is a problem that has created morale issues. It's created a backlog of work, and it must be addressed. And I'm sure that the chief financial officer can speak to it as well. It is not about giving a whole bunch of raises. It's about another body that we need there. It's an entry-level position. It's a level 3, low grade. We need someone in there with clerical skills that can work with the public, that can help us get the work done. A lot of what comes in through the door and phone calls, these are people who need help. This department is known to try to help people versus send them to different departments, which is really important to me, and we want to continue that. But the stress level in that department, and also we do have a retirement in June, just want to add that too. So that's a little concerning. Our treasurer is retiring in June, at the end of June, which adds even more stress to the department. So that's my recommendation. It is a change in the budget. We can discuss it through finance, but I did get the funding through the excess balance that was presented when we presented the budget, and also $17,000 from roadway reconstruction in the DPW budget. That is a one-time use, and the only reason I was able to do that is because the state just informed us they're gonna it's like $300,000 or $400,000 more. Roadways are extremely important, as you know, especially in this weather, for the town. In this position, we have to balance priorities, and I felt like this was a good balance. Because we got the additional state money, this week I could use a small portion of that to offset this need. So that is the change that is in your budget documents that were given to you tonight.
Thank you. First budget on our docket is the town clerk elections department. We usually read through the entire budget first, so I'll do that. Town clerk department, it's, town clerk is 161 in your binder. Do we need to read through this
Oh,
at the end?
Last week, too, that you recommended that you wanted maybe like a small introduction from the department head on the budget, or like a overview of the budget. So we can have Ginger do that first, and then we can continue from there.
Let's do clerk first, because I forget that elections is a separate budget.
I'll go.
Hi.
Did I tell you you were going to do this?
You might have. I might have forgotten.
You got it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Or evening, sorry. Okay, so the town clerk's office is made up of 3 employees. Wendy Bloomquist, who is the assistant town clerk. She started working for the town of Auburn in 2004. Melinda Kemp, who is the principal clerk. She started working for the town of Auburn in 2001. Myself, the town clerk, started working here in Auburn 5 years ago, but I do have past experience in other towns. Our office is very busy, just like others here in the town hall. For example, last year we registered 158 births, 104 marriages, 224 deaths. This year we are already at 19 births, 11 marriages, and 56 deaths. On top of doing this, we are registering dogs. As it stands right now, we have registered 912 dogs. We have about 100 of them that we are either waiting for more information from the owners or money that they owe for late fees. We have about 30 envelopes that we still have to open and process, and people are still coming in on a daily basis to register their dogs in person. The open enrollment period ends March 31st, but we do not start charging late fees until May 1st. We mailed out 8,309 street listings. Each of those had 1 vote-by-mail application, and we'd mailed those out the end of January. We're currently still working on getting the street listings and the vote-by-mail applications into the voter registration system. During all of this, we still also take care of renewing and new business licenses that come in, gas registrations that come in, public records requests, swearing in new employees and board and committee members, notarizing paperwork for residents, processing anywhere between 20 to 50 voter registration changes or new voters that come into town on a daily basis. During all of this, we also conduct the elections that go on every year, anywhere between 1, 3, and then on every 4 years, 4 elections. At the end of 2024, we had 7,700 households and approximately 16,865 residents. You're welcome.
Any questions on the town clerk's budget?
That was great. It sounds like we have a declining population. If I understood those
Declining
numbers.
population?
If I understood the numbers correctly.
So the state census that happened in 2020 was 16,889, if I can remember correctly. The town one fluctuates on a day-to-day, pretty much a day-to-day basis. But we're holding steady in the 16,800 range. We don't drop much below. We have these apartments that are coming in. That's going to jack that up. Our the registered voters that we have in town as it stood the end of December was 13,510. That's an increase from the last few years. I think in 2023, we had 13,200. So that's about 300 in a year.
How many businesses are there? And how many, because those would be business licenses, right?
Business licenses, not every business has a license, because if you are an LLC, you do not need one in town unless you're doing business underneath a different name. For example, McDonald's, they don't need to hold a business license. So it's hard to say how many businesses are in town.
How many residential properties did you say? Did you say that?
Residential properties, we mailed out, what did we mail out? We mailed out 8,309. And that's because some residents has multiple apartments in one place. But as far as households itself, 7,700 approximately.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was just curious, do you use, I think OpenGov is here in Auburn, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Do we utilize OpenGov for any of the any of your clerk business, for the lack of?
The dog licenses.
You do use it for the dog
Yes,
licenses?
we just started with that last year. We were the first ones to start using it. We're noticing other issues than what the building department has, because our licenses get renewed every year.
Right.
So we're catching little bugs here and there, so we're slowly working through them.
No, but it's good to hear that we've got the software and we're trying to expand on it, but it's better than just not using it, so thank you. Okay.
Any other questions?
I
I had one question, and I apologize if this is actually a question for Karen, but I seem to remember, and I'm not 100% sure, but that the town clerk's salary had to be approved like at town meeting as opposed to by the finance committee, because it's an elected position. And so there is an increase here, and I don't remember how we've treated that in the past.
Actually, I can explain why there's an increase,
Yeah,
and perhaps Karen
to
can.
be fair, I have no issue with the increase itself.
But,
Yeah.
but I think it's an important question anyways, because it is definitely an increase. So last year, when we did the budget, Ginger was interim, she hadn't been voted in yet. So there's a difference in her salary because of that, and I do believe she also has been certified in, she has a certification that warrants this increase to get her to where she would have been if she was not interim. But I would refer to Karen to see if she's aware of the process at town meeting in regards to Ginger's salary.
I do believe that there's an agenda item on the annual town meeting warrant each year to set the salaries of the elected officials. You're right. Yeah.
So then, just to clarify the question, then we would just be approving it for town meeting, and then once the budget goes before town meeting, their act of approving it would therefore then approve her salary.
So we will either recommend or not recommend the budget. I believe that there's,
Yes.
we vote on the budget as a whole, but there's also a separate warrant item specifically for elected, like
Yes.
constitutional officers or chartered, whatever the positions are that are in the town charter that have to be elected. So,
Those are standard every year, if I can
yeah,
remember
and I don't
correctly
think there's
now.
any issue with us voting on
Yeah.
the budget itself. I mostly just wanted to point out that like that is something that we don't control entirely ourselves. Not that every budget goes before town meeting, it's just not all of them have like a specific line item addressing it, so.
Motion to recommend.
Will you hold off 1 second?
I just had one question. So the note says there was a salary survey done. Is that just, was there something official, or is that just calling around other like-sized towns and speaking to their town clerk?
So what I did was I pulled the, on the Town Clerks Association page, there's a survey that everybody put in their budget, what they were making as of the end of their town meetings. So that's what I pulled. I pulled all the towns that were within Massachusetts that were the same size, and then also Worcester County.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to read the budget before,
Okay, I just realized we were just still
Yeah, that's
discussing.
okay.
it. Yep.
so for the town clerk's budget, the top section, salary, the department request was $87,000. The town manager's recommendation was also $87,000. State certification stipend, we have a department request of $1,000 and a town manager recommendation of $1,000. The assistant, which is still a salary line item, is department request of $67,320 and a recommendation of $67,320. The clerical salary line is department request of $61,806 and a town manager recommendation of $60,594. In the operational budget, contracted services is neither requested nor recommended. Listings and bindings is a department request of $1,100 and a town manager recommendation of the same. Miscellaneous supplies is a request of $4,550 and a town manager recommendation of the same. Certification and dues is a department request of $555, town manager recommendation of the same. And travel, conferences, and education, $47.50, and a town manager request of the same. And that brings you to a total of a budget, which we will vote on, of $226,869, which is an increase over last year of 7.5% approximately. Do I hear any motions?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. All right, the next budget on our list is elections. It's also you, and I will not ask you to do another whole intro, but if you guys can take a quick look, it's the next budget in the binder, and just if you have any questions. I'll start with just a question that I'm sure is obvious from looking at this, but pretty significant decrease. I'm assuming that's just because we have less elections this year.
Yes, we only have one this year. We have the May election.
Any questions?
Who is are you the registrar as well?
I am one of them. There's 4.
All right, if there's no other questions, then I'm just going to read this one in as well. Registrar's salaries, department request of $4,213, town manager recommendation the same. In the future, I'm only going to say the town manager recommendation if it's different from the department request. Precinct officers, $9,500, custodians not funded. Listings and bindings, $150, and supplies, $20,000, excuse me, for a grand total for the elections budget of $33,863, which is a decrease of 48%, 48.2%. Any motions?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. Ginger, just before you go, I believe you did have one item in CIP. Just while we have you here, we don't vote on CIP until the very end, but if anyone has any questions, I believe the only item for the CIP is book and map repairs. If I remember correctly, this is a line item that's pretty consistent over the course of the years, and we're a number of years into a plan where we hit it every couple of years, so. So if there are any questions on the CIP budget, let me know, but otherwise, we can.
Just what is that?
Sorry, the CIP is a capital improvement plan.
No, the CIP, I know.
What's the
What-
10,000
got it.
What's the specific
Got it.
request?
So what we do is some of the old books that's down in the vault is over time, aging, starting to separate, so we send those away to get repaired.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are the books being repaired, or are we putting them on on a computer for the more general statement, like microfiche, or, are we copying them at some point so that they're not binded?
That would be a whole other very large expense. Right now, they're just being rebinded. Okay. I've heard other towns copying and getting them electronic. That's something that I've been thinking about looking into, but I have not yet.
So would it be fair to say that maybe the economies of scale or the cost of doing it the way we are still supersedes the cost of doing it electronically?
Yes,
Great. Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
If you don't have any other questions, we will move on to the moderator budget. I'm just going to read this one. I don't expect any questions. The salary for the town moderator is set at $296. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Trevor Sansucci?
Yes.
Patrick Jones?
Yes.
George Graham?
Yes.
Steve Consilio?
Yes.
Andrew Shar?
Yes.
And Vice Chair votes yes. All right, the next budget is the Select Board.
Is 122.
I don't think there's anyone here to answer any questions, because I don't know who even would. So if there are any questions, we can ask Karen. Sorry, Karen. Since there are no questions, I'm just going to read this one in. Select Board salaries, $7,837. Memberships and dues, $2,900. Volunteer recognition, $800. And then there's a conference meetings that's not funded. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Trevor Sansucci?
Yes.
Patrick Jones?
Yes.
George Graham?
Yes.
Stephen Consilio?
Yes.
Andrew Shar?
Yes.
And the Vice Chair votes yes. All right, the next one on our list is the Town Manager. I don't know if you've got anything to say, Dory. I'll let you go first.
Yes, thank you.
Can I make a request?
Absolutely.
When we do the agendas, can we put the code number with the description of the, so that, because what I'm doing is I'm looking at moderator.
I'm getting a yes.
And then I'm looking over at moderator.
Yes.
I think what we're saying is the master list could be either alphabetized with the numbers falling second default, or that we have the numbers put, because it just makes it difficult to try to cross-reference the list with the budget book.
The
Great.
request has been approved.
How's that, Steve?
Thank you.
Second that.
Okay, through the chair, thank you so much. This budget is, request is lower this year compared to last year. We currently have myself on this budget along with 2 part-time employees and 1 full-time employee. No, 2 full-time employees, 1 starting on Monday. And there is no, there's a decrease in the clerical staff, and that is due to a retirement, and the new hire was brought in at a lower rate. So it's, there's a little bit of a difference there. So it's negative 6,800 for the budget. But we do the advertising for the town audit, parking, service, and printing. ICMA annual conference, I have no plans to go to, so I didn't budget for that, so.
Any questions on this budget? All right, I'm going to read this one in. Town Manager, Executive Office of the Town Manager budget, salary line item is $216,404. Clerical budget is $178,500. There's nothing budgeted for buyback in the salary section. And then for travel meetings, we have $7,800. For dues publications, we have $50. For advertising, we have $11,000. For professional services, we have $35,000. For parking service, we have $25,000. For printing, we have $400. Excuse me, I think I
I think you're off on
I
that.
think we're-
I'm off by one. I'm going to go back up to advertising was $11,000. Town audit is $35,000. Professional services is $25,000. Parking service is $400. Printing is $800. And we have nothing budgeted for the ICMA conference. The total for the budget this year is $474,954, which is a 1.5% approximately decrease.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. I believe town manager also has one item on CIP. So if anyone has any questions, it is the records vault suppression system. It's a $35,000 CIP budget for this year. I don't know if anyone has any questions, concerns, but now's the time. Seeing,
Fire suppression system?
Through the chair, it's for the dry suppression in case of a fire.
In case of fire, okay.
all right. All right, we're going to move on to human resources, which is budget
152.
152.
That is helpful. So that is me as well. We have a change in our budget this year because last year we had budgeted the HR generalist for half a year. So that position's fully funded. I'm pleased to say that they start in HR on Monday, so that position is full. We also, upon the recommendation of the chief financial officer, we moved basically $10,000 of funds to pay for advertising for jobs. We advertise for jobs through multiple sources. Indeed is one of the ones we use quite often. And it was, actually, some of it was in the town manager's budget. It is here now. She felt that it was important to keep that expense with HR. So those are the two major changes in this budget. We did have a retirement from our previous HR coordinator, retired back in December, and we have a new appointment as well. So we have a brand-new office with two new employees. So we've got a little bit of a learning curve, but they're excited to get started, and they're looking to automate things and make some really good changes. So it's an exciting time in HR.
Thank you. Any questions?
Motion to recommend.
I'm going to read
You
it
gotta
first,
read it.
but yeah, that's
Never
good.
mind.
So in the salary section, the HR director, assistant town manager, we have a $163,803. In salary, we have $67,824. In clerical, we have $11,750, but the town manager actually recommended $11,985. For HR generalist, we have $62,000 department request, but a town manager recommendation of $58,900. For advertising, which is a new item, we have $10,000. For medical exams, we have $15,000. For miscellaneous supplies, we have $2,050. For travel, we have $200. And for professional development, we have $4,800. The total department request was $337,428. The total town manager recommendation is $334,563 for an increase of 17.8%.
Motion to recommend.
Second.
Will you clarify whether we are recommending the department request or the town manager recommendation?
Town manager.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham, Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. Next budget we have is library, but we are punting that one until a later date because there's a Board of Trustees meeting tonight and the director couldn't be here. So the next one is Finance Department, which is 135. Karen
For the
Harnos?
chair, thank you. I'm just going to give a little overview. So the finance department consists of the accounting department, assessing, and the treasurer collector. In the accounting department, we have the CFO town accountant position, the assistant town accountant, who started in November of 2024. We have a newer employee there, so the former one went to the HR position. And we have 2 clerks who work part-time in accounting, but they're full-time employees because they also work in other departments. So overall, just a couple of things. The accounting department is responsible for payroll, accounts payable, the financial records of the town, the budget, W-2s, 1099s, free cash, just a few things that we handle in the accounting. Now, Seth also is here this evening. He's the chief assessor. In the assessing department, we have Seth as the chief assessor, we have the assistant assessor, and we also have a clerk/data collector. Now, in the assessing department, they just completed their 5-year revaluation for fiscal year '25, when the values were certified by the Department of Revenue. They're responsible for the billings, real estate, personal property, motor vehicle, they handle, and they also handle the abatements. A bunch of other things as well, but I just wanted to hit on a few of the highlights of the department. And then there's treasurer collector. There's the treasurer collector, who the interim town manager mentioned, who's going to be retiring in June. There's the assistant treasurer collector, and then currently there's 3 full-time clerical positions, but we are recommending 1 additional position. If I can just add on to that too, there has been several departments that have gone on with online payments. The town clerk mentioned about the dog licenses. Also upstairs, they're using the OpenGov for business permits. And the fire department is going to be coming online with fire permits as well. So all of those are adding into, additional responsibilities for whether it's balancing and taking in the cash for that department. And as you know, that the treasurer collector's office is responsible for all the cash receipts in the town, monitoring the receivables, and if we have to go out for debt, that they take, amongst other responsibilities as well.
Any questions from the committee?
Since we're expanding OpenGov, is the accounting department actually the reconciliation for the online payments? Are they the one that cross-reference the deposits from each department with the bank? Is there a batch system? Could you explain to me how the different departments merge their cash into the treasurer's office?
Right, so that's part of the issue. So with the OpenGov, we have the town clerk and the building department, and we can run reports by department. But when they turn over, they have to have that report, and then when they do the turnover to the treasurer collector's office, that's what the backup is the reports from the OpenGov. So we were struggling for a while just to kind of separate out the different payments. And we just found out recently, they both use Stripe. Both of those offices use Stripe. And we just found out that the fire department is also going to have to use Stripe. So now there's an additional department that's going to have to be added in there. So it just makes it a little bit more complex.
Yeah, but my question is one person reconciling against the bank, or are the separate departments doing their reconciliation? So the end of business, I believe, if I'm correct, OpenGov is going to close out at the end of each day.
Correct,
And then what you have to do is you have to say, well, these are all the receipts that we got for the day. Some are going to be in the assessing office, some are going to be in the building department, some are going to be the clerk's office for the dog licenses and so forth. So someone's got to make sure that cash then makes it into it gets reconciled before it gets posted, so that
That's-
we're not thinking we have $2,150 in receipts and the bank is showing $1,950 in receipts.
Right, and that is the treasurer's office.
It's the treasurer's office that's doing
Yes.
that.
And if I may, this has been a topic of discussion as we move to integrate OpenGov, in particular, OpenGov and Stripe, which is the system we have to use, the only system we can use, that we're allowed to use with OpenGov, puts all of these departments together.
Right.
So the treasurer's office has to take the daily turnovers and match them up every single day. So it's just a lot more work, although it's saving us time on the other side. We're still working out the details, but now we've got a third department where all the money's being funneled into one area that we need to separate ourselves. So that's one of the reasons why I recommended this new position.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Motion?
Motion to recommend.
Motion and a second. I didn't read this one in, so I'll read it in now. CFO, or, excuse me, I'm just going to skip the first line because it's not funded. Town accountant, CFO, department request, $128,941. Assistant town accountant, $68,000. Clerical, $54,000, $54,644. Buyback, $2,471. Miscellaneous supplies, $250. Travel and meetings, $7,000. Professional development and dues, $800. And that means the accountant division of the finance budget comes out to a total of $262,106. For the assessors, the chief assessors, $92,670. The assistant assessor is $69,534. The clerical is $47,774. There was a department request for data collection stipend of $2,500, but that was not in the town manager recommendation. The assessor's stipend is $1,000. The computer service is $3,900. Map updating is, nope, sorry, map updating is, this is hard to read. Map updating is $3,900. The update of valuations is $15,000. The appellate cases and abstracts are not funded. The miscellaneous supplies is $500. Travel is $500. Memberships and dues is $500. Training courses is $3,000, and revaluation is not funded because there's a line above. And that brings you to a total assessor's budget, assessor division budget, department request of $236,878, and town manager recommendation of $234,378. For the treasurer collector division, the treasurer collector salary is $95,450. The assistant treasurer collector is $69,534. The clerical had an initial department request of $136,834, but the town manager's recommendation is $183,438, and a certification of $2,000. Bill printing is $55,000. Tax title is $10,000. Certification of notes is $3,740. Travel meetings is $2,000. Publications dues is $300. Equipment is unfunded. Interest on abatements is $1,000. Shredding is $270. Veribank is $200. An invoice cloud fee is $1,200 for a treasurer collector subtotal of $73,700. For a treasurer collector subtotal of department request of $377,528, and a town manager recommendation of $424,132. And that means the total finance department budget was requested at $876,512, but the town manager's recommendation is $920,616 for an increase of $66,208.40, or 7.75%. I believe we already had a motion and a second, so we'll go to the vote. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. The next budget is the law department, which is 151 in our binders. I'm just going to read this one. If you guys have any questions, we can ask them after. General counsel, $85,000. Negotiator, $50,000. And special litigation, $10,000. The department request and the town manager recommendation are the same. If there's any questions, we can ask Dory. My only question is, I know that last year, we made a pretty significant increase to the general counsel line item, and it's level funded this year. I thought that was due to, like, a specific instance last year, but I'm not sure. So I don't know if that was a permanent change, or it's possible that it was meant to better capture where the fees were going, but.
Through the chair, I don't know of any significant increase in the past year of legal counsel, although they are used very often. So I'm not sure if there was an incident, but we are in collective bargaining, and I anticipate, within the next few months, possibly not this fiscal year, but finishing at the end of this fiscal year, beginning of next, where I will be utilizing counsel for helping to finalize those agreements. It's always best to have them, go through counsel at that point, but I don't know of any increased usage in this past year.
Just also, because I forgot to do it, the legal budget's total is $145,000. Go ahead, Steve.
To the question, it says on fiscal year '24, we only had 29,000, with an average of 45, which sort of goes to your point of it.
I think that if I remember correctly, I think part of the reason was negotiator was at $91,000. I think that was capturing collective bargaining fees, but some of those were being paid to the general counsel. So I think there was like a reformatting of it. The actual, like the grand total didn't go up that much from 24 to 25, which is level funded in 26. But yeah, this is more trying to
Moved around a
scratch
little
the itch in my own brain than anything else, so. Any other questions?
If I may, what negotiations are this year? What union negotiations are we negotiating?
All of them,
All of them?
All of them.
Including
yes.
teachers and everything, or?
Oh, no, I don't do the teachers, but
Okay.
all of the town side, the
All the town
teachers
side.
settled last year.
Gotcha, okay.
So I'm in negotiations with all of the town side
Rest of the
side
unions.
units right now.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
If I don't see any more questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Good.
Okay. Motion to recommend.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar.
Yes.
The vice chair votes yes. Next budget on our list for tonight is the reserve fund, which is somewhere
132.
132. For the reserve budget, our department request is $400,000 for a reserve fund, which matches the town manager, and salary wage reserve is $480,000, matches the town manager, for a total reserve fund appropriation of $880,000. I know that we had already talked about the increase to the salary wage being in anticipation of the same collective bargaining agreements that we just talked about. So if there are any other questions, concerns, anybody's got, otherwise, go ahead.
What is the other part of the reserve fund that's not salary wages, just?
Through the chair, that would be any other transfers, say like we just did one for the fire overtime. That is what that is for, too, for other unanticipated extraordinary expenses.
I mean, this is a bigger appropriation than in previous years, but we typically do appropriate a decent amount to reserve every year. I think that may have been part of Ed's financial policies or something. Some portion was, yeah.
I think you're right, correct.
Any motions?
Recommend.
Second.
A motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci, Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham, Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. Next budget for tonight is maturing debt, which is, I should be ahead of this. Do you know which one that is?
7.5, oh.
710.
710. Oh, it's 'cause, yeah, got it. All right. For the maturing debt budget, I'm just going to read this one in. I'm going to skip the line items that are no longer being appropriated. SRF loan, $19,516. General obligation, 8.9M, is $360,000. General obligation, 16,000, there's a bunch of general obligations, they all have different amounts. 680,000, 765,000, 245,000, 140,000, 560,000, and 235,000. The total debt budget is $3,004,516. Are there any questions on this one?
General obligation is, how do I ask this question? This is a continuing debt? I'm not understanding this, I guess.
So these are, through the chair, so these are amounts, this is principal payments on amounts that have already been borrowed.
Okay, for operating expenses, as opposed to capital improvement, or both?
No, I would, majority of them, these are all capital improvement.
High school debt was the first one, and it's no longer on the books.
That's just the
but
one that has a
I
name.
believe
Most of these
yeah,
don't have
most
a
of them don't have names. They're
Okay.
they're categorized by the amount we borrowed, but I think the middle school debt is in here. I think there might be one more.
Yes.
And it's all capital improvements.
Any other questions?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. Next up is interest, which is next in the book at 752. I'll read this one in as well. There's $29,250 for a general obligation bond, $1,415 for an SRF loan, $8,460 for another general obligation, $109,519 for another GOB, $196,350 for another GOB, $47,900 for another GOB, $132,100 for another GOB, and $109,625 for the final GOB. That's a total interest payment of $634,619. Any questions?
Through the chair, if I might, just for clarification, the bond payments that we just approved are the principal. The interest coincides year to date, or not year to date, but each year, the amount of interest that's going to mature comes with that. What can change these schedules is if we refinance, and I know we haven't refinanced in a while. Is that opportunity looking like it could present itself, or we look at it every year and then we turn away from it?
Right, every so often, we look to see if it would be a good time if it would give us a substantial amount of savings. Our financial advisor looks at that as well.
Sure. Yep, good. Motion to recommend.
Second.
It's interest, we have to pay it. It's like,
We have a motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. Next budget is pension and benefits. Read this one in as well. Unemployment compensation, $50,000. Disability, $1,600. Group insurance, $9,100,000. Worcester County Retirement Fund, $5,760,265. Non-contributing retirement, $8,500. Medicare, $683,000. Medicare penalty, $23,000. And that is it. Grand total of $15,626,365 for an increase of about 6.79%. Any questions?
I just have one question. How many people are currently on the Medicare penalty that we have to absorb until they're not on it for, down the road?
That's a very good question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I'm not really sure.
Thank you.
So the 9 million is the self-insured health insurance?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I just wanted to say, obviously, you can see here that the two heavy hitters on the increase are the group insurance, which is increasing 4.6%, and then the Worcester County Retirement is an increase of 11.75% from the previous year. But we are going to take advantage of the savings of the $99,104, and we pay it by July 1st.
Great, prompt pay?
Yep.
Great.
Is that calculated into the budget already, that savings, or?
Yes, it's already reduced by that amount.
And actually, I would think with the way everything is skyrocketing, as much as it's a large 4.6, it's probably small compared to what it could have been. The
Right, 'cause-
healthcare.
Right, because we're actually leveraging some of the, I think we talked about that too, the balance is over $11 million in the trust. So we're also giving a couple of premium holidays to the, those that are on the health insurance, and that'll come out of the trust.
Motion to recommend.
Second?
A motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. Next is the Finance Committee. Number 131. Finance Committee, we have a printing line item of $1,100. Miscellaneous supplies is unfunded, and dues of $215. It's level funded from last year. $1,315 total. Any questions?
Motion to recommend.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. Next up is Town Hall, which is 192, is that what you said? Thank you. Town Hall budget, we have equipment maintenance, $32,000, equipment rental, $6,000, miscellaneous supplies, $2,500, and building maintenance, $17,000, for a total appropriation of $57,500. Any questions?
I had one question, because I thought we had a big bill last year for the elevator repair. And I was just wondering where that falls, because everything looks pretty flat funded.
So I'll start by just saying, this is the budgeted versus budgeted, not actual versus budgeted. So the fiscal year '25 is the budgeted, so it wouldn't be reflected. I know we've asked about transfers before. I think the goal is to have next year have them be included, but yeah. My question is sort of a follow-up to that, though, which is if we had a huge, repair last year, obviously this building is not getting any younger. Like, are we, I know we don't expect bad things to happen, but do we think that we are appropriately budgeting for this?
Through the chair, I believe we are. We are making some strides through the use of the ARPA funds for the HVAC system. We're working with someone right now to get that out to bid, to start the work on that. That is one of our biggest issues, and to ensure energy efficiency. And right now, people have heaters in their office plugged in. In the summer, they have fans, so that will hopefully go away and save us some money on the, expenses for the building. But we don't anticipate anything large in regards to, repairs. And the good thing about us is that we have a very talented DPW that has a great skill set and can actually do quite a bit of our stuff unless it requires a licensed electrician or plumber. But besides that, they do a lot of work in this building.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve? Oh,
Second.
you haven't read it.
Motion to recommend.
Question to
Yeah,
recommend.
second.
A motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the Vice Chair votes yes. Next up is General Services, which is next in the book at 199. I'll read this one in. Clerical part-time, $14,152. Committee clerks is unfunded. Overtime is $1,000. Electricity, $160,000. Streetlights, $75,000. Water, sewer, heat, $90,000. Hydrant, $1,200. Advertising, $4,000. Telephone, $62,000. Postage, $30,000. Town report, $1,200. Office supplies, $22,000. Gas, oil, diesel, $300,000. Insurance and bonds, $999,000, for a total appropriation for the general services budget of $1,750,552, which is a level funded from 2025. Any questions on this one?
Insurance in this case is property insurance?
It's all insurance. It's property, workers'
Liability.
comp, IOD.
Any other questions?
There's a prompt pay discount on that as well. Is that going to get paid in full and then also be benefited at the payment, or is that usually made in monthly or quarterly installments?
I'm not sure that there is a prompt pay on this one, because we're with Hub. I know that when, I've seen with Maya, we get like a prompt pay, but I don't believe that we do
Okay,
with Mega and Hub.
thank you.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm wondering, does the state have like a group buy on insurance for towns?
Or
Or do we,
for
does
liability.
every town go out and sort of negotiate their own rates?
Maya is pretty much, has, I wouldn't say a monopoly, but has a lot of cities and towns, liability insurance, IOD, this whole, group of insurance. I have in previous jobs, and I know it happened here, is you go out for bids, and they do have competition. And even right now, despite the fact that we have someone in place for next year, I'm getting quotes, because it's always good to keep the people that you work with every year, make sure that they're still the lowest price, because they provide the same service. So it's good to always get quotes, but there are other companies that compete against Maya.
On the, just like gas, oil, diesel, electricity, most other places I'm associated with are expecting increases, but we're expecting a level budget on those. I guess, question on that.
Yes, I do feel that we're within our budgeted line item, that we're not going to run into a problem in those areas. It considers some flexibility on pricing, because those are obviously not completely known, but there is some flexibility within those numbers.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the Vice Chair votes yes. Next, that is it. That's all of our budgets. All right?
That's it.
Yeah, that's all of our budgets. We didn't have any other transfers. I don't believe we had any minutes to approve, so that's it.
I have one item to just talk about for a minute, not necessarily, because I know we have to be careful what's not on the agenda, but I do want to raise
Is there an item you'd like to talk about at our next meeting, add to the agenda for our next meeting?
well, it needs to be added. I noticed that when we got the emails that did the agenda that we had in last year when we finished up and we talked about the budget process, that we wanted to give more attention to the CIP as its own budget. And I personally thought that it would serve us better if we did it at the beginning, because some of the departments that we're about to talk to, like, we have referred to it on a couple of occasions tonight, but the fire and the police and other departments have much larger portions in their CIP, so I think it would be prudent, not necessarily to vote on it, but to put it at the beginning of the budget process in an effort to reduce the complexity and then simplify the meetings when we go before those other departments. But we can't do that because we've already initiated the budget process. And I know that at some point, we will go over it, and we can invite them back as well, for anybody who is going to be in that. But it would make sense to try to, so it's really, I think there's a point on both sides. We'll probably need to call them back, because we might have some questions, but I would just suggest to the Finance Committee that when we have a department in front of us and we're reviewing the budgets for the meeting, that we do take a look to make sure that, there is, like we've sort of done in the past.
Yeah.
But I know we did discuss having a portion of time at one of our meetings dedicated just to review the CIP, so as a committee, we could address it separate from the departments.
Yeah, so traditionally, we have done it last so that we can talk to each department about their CIP before we vote on it, because obviously, we're not going to get every single department here on the first meeting and then have them come back again.
Exactly.
And it is always something that we vote on separately and have the opportunity to discuss. So
But I guess when we got Sharon or Danielle, I'm not sure if she had done it ahead of you, we got sort of a list of what to expect, and the CIP isn't on there, so I would.
that may just be because we'll tack it on to we haven't announced all of our
Right,
agendas, obviously, so it'll likely just.
I think it would be prudent to do it closer to the beginning, because when we're looking at the police and the fire and some of these departments, I think even though they're very separate, they have their own separate identities, I think it merits a bigger, better picture on what that department's trying to accomplish. Just from
Yeah.
from someone who's had a background in finance.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
we're not doing anything off the agenda, I'm just raising the point as a topic of discussion.
Understood.
Because we have to be careful that we stick to the agenda.
Can we not vote or discuss the CIP as part of the department budget every meeting?
We always
But we're not
it's
voting.
reliant on us to make sure that we
Is that
bring it
the
up,
point? Is that
but
we're
we
not
don't vote on it. We vote on, because CIP is its own budget, we have to vote on it in its entirety or make amendments as we go. And so we traditionally have voted on it last, just so that every department has the opportunity to answer any questions we have about their CIP when they're here, and then we vote on the budget at the end. But I see the value in doing it early as well. I mean, it's sort of it's just a preference.
Yeah, and to your question, it's just, we can ask them questions about it, or we ask them if there's anything they want to tell us, so that when the time comes, we've got the knowledge. But you're right, we just sort of discuss it when they're here for their budget. We don't actually act on it when we're voting. So when we vote, this evening, somebody was in and we asked them about the clerk. When she
Right,
came in, we
about
had a
the
question.
bindings,
When we voted, we only voted on their department budget. When we approved that and recommended it, we weren't recommending their CIP. We were just recommending their regular budget.
But since this is an internal procedural thing that, for our own purposes, couldn't we just as easily make a motion to approve the CIP portion of that department?
No, because you're treating the CIP as a whole budget.
I don't think we can vote on I don't think we have you'd have to vote to amend the CIP budget to
But we're
reflect.
not, we're just voting on, we're just discussing two lines of
I
it.
guess what I'm trying to say is, if you wanted to make a change,
Voting on the
you would
amendment kind of a
you would amend it. If you didn't want to make a change, you'd just leave it in the budget until we vote on CIP. So it's why traditionally we've just voted on it last, because then when the departments are in, I know I make a point to like look at the CIP budget before each meeting and see if any of the departments coming before us that night have CIP. It's why I brought up those two tonight, so that we have the opportunity to ask questions. That sort of relies on one of us doing that each week. So I, as long as I'm here, I try to do that every week. It's not a formal part of the process, but I know Kevin feels the same way. I won't speak for him, but I believe Kevin feels the same way. So I'll just say my intention throughout the course of this, and I'm not aware that I will miss any meetings, is that if I'm here, I will take a look at the CIP before we have any departments in and have the opportunity to ask them questions, so that we don't get to the point where at the end, if they can't make whatever meeting we vote on CIP at, we don't have the opportunity to ask whatever. So I
Just
obviously,
raise
yeah,
your
yeah, I see the value in doing it early.
I read
because-
the emails when they
Yeah,
come, so I noticed
yeah.
it wasn't there.
Absolutely. I know that I don't know if every single budget is in that,
I know,
is on
I'm
the
not sure. I
schedule
sort of
yet.
tried to
I know
go
we
through.
typically try to have a general outline, and then each week's agenda is set when it's set. So I assume what typically our last meeting before town meeting is when we vote on CIP. So that would be my expectation. Any
That's
other
all I have.
questions, concerns, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Just trying to catch up.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Trevor Sansucci,
Yes.
Patrick Jones,
Yes.
George Graham,
Yes.
Stephen Consilvio,
Yes.
Andrew Shar,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. We are adjourned.